James Clark. He like saw my age and was like, "Holy fuck! Like you're 21 years old."
Eat off in the recliner with the curtains all swarmy as fuck. All right. 4-day work week.
Oh my god, my brain
doing a
heard
small.
my brain heard horny work week, and I was like, I wasn't ready for this topic.
You know what? A 4-day work week could make you hornier because you're not going to be as tired. And when you're not as
Yeah.
tired, you're going to be a little more randy. There's actually, so fatigue, a lot of people don't know that fatigue will get in the way of your libido. It's so bad that, like, in the Marine Corps, there's guys in there that actually think they put sedatives in your, or like anti-boner rather thing, powder in your
It's
eggs.
just dead
It's like,
tired.
no, dude, you just haven't slept in a week. Like, what are you talking about? You've been covered in blood for 72 hours. You're not going to get a hard on. Not to mention, you're in a barrack full of dudes.
Yeah, it's not exactly.
Why
like
do you want a boner?
territory.
4-day
Answer that
work week. I
question.
don't have an intro ready for this, so I guess we'll just get into it. So what's probably going to end up happening, we're getting cynical about this real quick. Holy shit.
Oh god, yeah.
Probably
Yeah.
going to end up happening is 4 8-hour days will result in a nation of part-time workers. No one will have health insurance. Everyone will be on Cobra or Medicaid.
Oh no, it's all connected.
It's all connected. And we're all going to be paying and bowing to BlackRock and Larry Fink and all his millions.
Oh. And it makes it easier to weaponize the managerial class because you keep them in their position of, well, you guys get the full-time hours from now on because you're according to our government, an asset of the company to be wielded against labor.
Bernie Sanders, he's pretty well known for being a proponent for a shorter work week. Thank God. His latest proposal basically set the full-time work hours to 32 hours or 8 hours in a day. So if you work past 8 hours in a day or you work past 32 hours in a week, you would get paid overtime, which would mean nurses, for instance, work like a typical nurse's schedule is like 3 days on, 12-hour days, and 4 days off, and you'll just kind of repeat that off and on.
Mm-hmm.
In those 3 days, you'll work 36 hours. Well, you're working 12 hours each day. You're getting 4 hours overtime each day.
Yeah.
So a third of that 36-hour week is paid time and a half, and nurses already make $100K a year. So now for 4 hours or for a third of your work week, you're making what, $65 an hour, something like that. Like, that is going to cause potentially, and probably intuitively too, like it'll cause a rise in healthcare costs. So really, really just tying it in, because now nurses are expensive. CNAs are going to become more expensive now because they work very similar long hours. And CNAs have only recently, at least up in my hometown, started to get paid decent. Like, it wasn't like in 2017, CNA, this is not about that, but in 2017, CNAs back in like Eastern Illinois were making, I shit you not, like $13 an hour.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. No, I absolutely believe that.
I don't know what they were making everywhere else, but
it changed, it shifted, and like I wish it was enough to like help justify like the shit they go through too, because like literally. Bad man joke. No, it's an interesting thought process, and it always brings me back to this, like, humans are creative. This whole system is just made up. We just have to kind of like play pretend hard enough to get it into a way that works for everyone. But like, you're not wrong. It would drive up costs because if we go with the scenario of nurses, like that's a 24/7 job type. And then we say, okay, let's just say they're all paid 100K a year just to make it easy. I don't know if that's anywhere here, but we'll say each person makes 100K a year. But now instead of working 5 days a week, they work 4 days a week. I'm just going to keep it real simple. 8-hour shifts, let's say. But now we condense that and we pay them more. That does create gaps. So now the bright side is it's going to create jobs that pay well, and you could puzzle piece those hours together, I'm sure, to make them work, and seniority and stuff can go into the scheduling. I don't know, my managerial brain pops on pretty damn quick. But that would be a net positive for the economy. And I think that's one of those things, like when we're talking about healthcare specific, not just 4-day work weeks generally, healthcare is like one of those unique things. It has to run 24/7. It is more of a service than a boutique, if that makes sense. Like, it's going to cost, and it's something big the government should really be like more on top of. And all sorts of goodies
So
with that. But
it
4-day
is
work weeks for
shifting
like tech, I don't know. Okay, I would also have to touch on production in a moment too, because like, do you, do you do you have like days where you just burn out and aren't as productive, but you have like quotas to meet, right?
often,
Yeah,
often.
and are
Especially
they
when I was working
daily?
in rebar. When I yeah, yeah, no, we
Okay,
just did it. It didn't matter. Uh, the best of us anyway, just did it.
yeah, you
Um,
just grind through it. Yeah,
yeah, good, quite literally sometimes. Yeah. In fact,
closest I got is Mountain
one
West
time,
Coast.
dude, I was cutting rebar and how it was cut was I operated a shear. I had a console right here. In front of me
Mhm.
was an entire assembly line, basically of rollers. I had rubber rollers. I'd roll the rebar onto that, and I have joysticks, and the rollers would move the rebar. The shear was just a big pair of scissors, basically. And this one
Yeah,
particular shear was pretty small, and it was shit. And it was hydraulic powered, and it was just garbage. I was constantly breaking it, even though I didn't think I was running it that hard.
yeah.
Well, it broke one day. It was my boss's fault. He was making me run some shit that I knew the thing wasn't ready for. And I tell him that, and he goes, "Well, we need to get this out." And he hands me a gas powered concrete saw and a grinding wheel that's about 22 inches wide and says, "Get to work." I had to cut this shit with a fucking grinder for like 6 hours.
Yeah.
It was
I
the dumbest for like 15 bucks an hour, dude. This is manufacturing, people. If you don't understand what manufacturing is and like why we are so goddamn disgruntled, this is why we work long hours, we work hard hours,
yeah,
and we are underpaid for it. We're underpaid, undervalued, and like I fucking scream from the rooftops all the time about how skill and experience are so undervalued in this economy. Labor, we are not in a labor economy. We are in a fucking shareholder economy. That is
yeah,
why we
yeah.
are in a 5-day work weeks tradition. It's not a law. It's not a law written anywhere saying that we have to work 5 days a week.
No,
It's
it's
only
just
tradition.
a
It is
norm.
just common practice.
Okay, so I was thinking about this, and I think this is indicative of like how things are divided up in our current culture. But technology has absolutely improved enough to improve the amount of production.
Absolutely.
But in our system right now, instead of being like, "Hey, Charles, good news. We just have a new machine that has an increase in 20% efficiency," with everything that that is now implying, you now have to work 4-day work weeks, but we're just going to keep paying you the same because we're still making the same. If they did something like that, yeah, tell me you wouldn't be like, I'm fucking staying here. Like that's a fucking good choice, boss. Thank you. And like
And
again,
I
we're
love
all
this. In
abused.
this example, you've touched on all of my points that I have for why a 4-day work week will work.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
don't compare notes. We don't like honestly, we don't really even talk outside of this show. We keep it all for the show. So when we have for you just to go and like almost point by point, just go, yep, 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 yep. That's all right. Show's over, guys.
A friendly reminder, production background, digital marketing background, and
Right, right. Yeah,
hospitality
completely.
background. Like, yeah. This is why we're here. We all agree on the same shit. That's the thing. Like,
Well, you know what? I didn't even agree on it. This is the facts. This is what the facts told me. Here's the
yeah.
thing: is like I am right. It's not that I have an opinion. It's that I read. It's that I see the facts, and then I
Yeah.
go, okay, that's the fact. I don't
Mhm.
have opinions on very many things. So when a 4-day work week gets brought up, I had an opinion because I had a preference. I didn't have
Yeah.
like a belief or anything. I was just like, yeah, I prefer to work less. So why
Yep.
not that? And then I
Yep.
started looking into it and I was like, oh man, okay, we have better attendance because yeah, duh.
Yep.
Here's the thing too, is like if you're working 4 days a week, you will generally use that fifth day for appointments, for
Oh
recitals,
yeah.
whatever you take dog
Shopping.
to the dog
Oh,
park, haircuts,
groceries.
oil changes, whatever the case.
Yeah.
So you have better attendance at work. And then when you're there, you're only there for 32 hours. There's an initiative called the 4-day week global. They're a consulting firm and they go around and essentially consult businesses on how to manage a 4-day work week, how to merge into a 4-day work week and keep it
Yeah.
successful and all this. And they did a study for a year and I'm sorry, 6 months. And they had 100 companies participating in Scandinavia, Canada, and the US to do a 4-day work week. They were essentially allowed to implement a 4-day work week however they wanted.
Yeah.
And 15% of them saw a significant increase in growth in the first 6 months they were doing it, and something like 70% of them said they were going to keep the 4-day work week. The other
Yeah.
ones that didn't keep it were just in industries that didn't make sense, in like real estate. You can't do a
Yeah.
4-day work week in real estate. You can't do a 4-day work week in sales. But that doesn't matter, because in sales, you're paid commission.
Yeah.
I
I
shouldn't
mean,
say it
that's
doesn't matter. It obviously does. Work-life balance is what the 4-day work
yeah.
week is all about. Really, we're talking about like salary and hourly guys here, though.
Yeah. An interesting one, little anecdote here. I think I'm using that right. When I was younger, I interviewed for a sales position job. And the guy was like, all right, so what are you kind of looking for? And I was like, look, honestly, sir, I hate commission. Give me a steady paycheck, even if it's less than a certain amount. Like, I'm okay with that. I just want something stable. Then I will do my best work. I don't do my best work when I'm worried I'm not going to make ends meet. And like we had this great conversation for almost 2.5 hours. He had sent away other interviews. I thought I had the job
Damn.
down pat. And like at the end of it, he was basically like, I'm going to offer you around 120K a year. I just need to think about this a little bit more, but you'll be one of our like guys who specializes in the tech that's going into the cars. Like you will be there at the drop offs to teach the rich people how to use their cars, basically. And I was like, this sounds amazing, but he couldn't shake that commission part. He's just like, I don't know, man. Like everything is commission in my industry, and how am I gonna know you're gonna perform? It's like because I'm fucking good at whatever I choose to do. Like you said, it's not an opinion that I can be good at what I do. It's a fucking fact that I'm good at what I do because I apply myself. It's interesting, like all these things come through. This will be my extreme side. I'm always on the fan of just like making sure that people are supported and able to do things. 4-day work week? Hell yeah. I would love an extra day. Oh, gives you time to, if you
You,
want, pursue a side hustle. If not, hopefully you're being paid a living wage so you can do nice things with your kids.
yeah, if you have kids, if you're about to
Yeah.
have them.
Yeah. Yeah. I
You
mean,
you
who has
actually
time?
touched on an interesting point there, and I think it's industry pressure that's going to
Mm.
keep most businesses from
Mhm.
switching. I don't think any single industry is going to completely move, or even majority of any single industry is going to move. I don't think a majority of work is going to move to a 4-day work week anytime soon, but I do think it's coming.
System
I
level.
think maybe by
Yeah.
2030, and I'll say 2030 specifically because it's estimated that by 2030, up to 30% of all working hours will be automated. So, like you were talking earlier, with AI and technology and all this stuff coming in, automating and
Yeah.
making more efficient the American worker. If that 30% is
Mm.
that, I mean, what is 30% of 40? It's 9 or something like that. 12. Yeah, it's
All
like
bad at
13.
math,
It's
obviously.
13. So
Yep.
13, right? You would
Yeah.
work 13 hours less a week. That's 27 hours you're working every week just to produce
Be
the
great.
same amount for your boss. Why wouldn't your
Mhm.
boss? I understand why your boss wouldn't. So I already know the answer to this question, but if your boss was a good person, why wouldn't your boss be like, cool, chill? And then you have a team, right? You have some overlap. Say you're in a production setting. You have to take
Yeah.
consideration and all this stuff for logistics. And
Yeah.
like I said, the industry won't move for you. You have to move for the industry. The trucking industry will not go down to 4 days a week, right?
No,
Logistics won't
like
do it.
the industries themselves, like you keep saying that the industries cannot. Like hospitals are not gonna just shut their doors one day a week if this changes. Like you say,
No.
infrastructure can, but it's the employee schedules that can. It's just it would be so
Yeah.
different in a good way.
So one thing that I had actually suggested, and it was never implemented because it was above my pay grade to tell people when they could and couldn't work in this regard, or in this effect anyway. And it was when I was a foreman at the last rebar job I had. We were working long, crazy hours. I was by far the most experienced guy in this industry in the shop, and I guess I just thought like I could handle the hours better than anyone else. So, and I was also the only one on the floor that didn't have kids. So you're working 60 to 72 hours a week, and I'm like, guys, like, is there any chance that you would love to not work 72 hours a week? And they're like, love it. Yep, right here. Okay.
Yep.
Is there any chance you would love to not work 60 hours a week? Yep, right here. I was like, what about 48? And they're like, because then they started thinking about like, that's
Money.
overtime. Like, I might need that for my mortgage. I got 7
Yep.
kids. I actually worked with a guy there who had 7 kids. And I was like,
Woo.
okay, so 48 hours a week, got you. What if we could do 4 12s for each of you? One team does Monday to Thursday, the other team does Tuesday to Saturday. I'm going to be here Monday to Saturday regardless. How about we do that? And they were all for it. My team was all for it. I went and presented that to my supervisors, who hated it.
Yeah.
Don't know why.
Yeah.
Don't know why. Especially because I had proven on paper that like this wasn't. I don't remember exactly the formula. It was a long time ago, but I had proven on paper with a pretty detailed report of like how this was going to help them, how this is going to help
Mhm,
all of us. I was like, this will work. You just have to
mhm,
trust me. You have to trust
mhm.
the fucking 10 years I have in this industry. You have to trust me
Yeah.
here. And they
Yeah.
didn't. They didn't. So I was never able to put that out there. But
Like, on a similar note, but I was in a I was a manager. I was part of the class that can do these things. When I first started, so fun story, my first hotel management job ended up becoming the youngest hotel manager in California until a lovely gal who works at the Hilton, I think it was, ended up taking it from me 3 years later. But for a chunk, I was like the young hotshot. And one of the first things I did was like, there's a law in California, you cannot ask someone's age when you're interviewing them. And I did this interview with this manager, and he was gruff and tough, but like I had the Japanese martial arts background, so it's like you're not nearly as intimidating as some of the guys who have tried to beat my skull in with a wooden sword. So like I was just polite and working my way through it with customer service charm. And he's like, you strike me as young, but I really like you. If you could hint at your age, like I know I can't ask you. And I was like, you can hint all you want. And I just kept it quiet until he hired me. And I signed paperwork, and he had to do that fucking supposedly illegal photocopy of the ID that all jobs do. And he like saw my age and was like, holy fuck. Like you're 21 years old. Holy fuck. I was like, internet. Just I was a damn good manager for him. For 2 years, I ran that hotel spick and span. And he responded like you described that. When I was like, hey, the biggest complaint all my employees have when I talk to them is their schedules. They want to be able to plan for their social lives. So what I was thinking was employee A with the most seniority gets Monday through Friday. I think he actually preferred differently, but basically it was like the person with the longest seniority gets their favorite pick,
mhm.
and that included evening shifts, morning shifts. And he ended up choosing it where he had 3 mornings and 2 evenings. And then that allowed me to get another person on the opposite and just fill in everything. And I put those schedules 3 months out in advance. The first month was a fucking mess. And my boss the whole time was like, I told you, you can't do this. You can't plan in advance like this. You cannot help them. The air of unexpectedness is a good thing. It keeps them on their toes. And then by the end of that 30 days, after people realized if I call out sick, I might screw you over. So now suddenly I call out when it's important because I have plans on my scheduled days off. And
and it
suddenly we were smooth.
and it increased the community bond, the teamwork there, because
Yeah.
they're recognizing that if I call out, I'm not only fucking myself, but I might be
Yeah.
fucking you too. That
When I had a crazy experience on that exact note where if you do things right, it leads to more positivity. That's my honest belief in life. If you do things wrong, I think it snowballs the other way just as quick. But like his whole thing was like the employees will never work together. At some point, when they would go to trade shifts and stuff, I'd be like, all right, here's the deal. I put the schedule out 3 months in advance. If you guys want to trade shifts, that's fucking fine. You can't trigger overtime unless I approve it. But otherwise, fucking swap. I don't care. Just put it on the schedule. Tell me it's happening. I trust you. And then what happened was one day, one of them fucked it up. They miscommunicated. There was no one to show up for a PM shift. And I was like, yo, what's going on? And that employee was mortified. She was like, I'm so sorry. Like, it's my fault. I thought I conveyed this clearly to this guy. Like, I'm dropping what I'm doing. So I had to cover the front desk for a few hours on a day off. But she came in immediately and was like, I'm so sorry I did this to you. Like, that's not a story you hear a lot these days. Like, Mrs. works at a retailer. If that happens, 9 times out of 10, the employees are like, I'm not coming in. I'm on my day off anyway. Fuck you. And they just roll because they're not
I think it's
respected.
because they see themselves as employees and not as coworkers.
Yeah, 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 110%. And I guess that's
But what's
to
crazy is, oh, sorry, go for it.
to loop that back around at the top of your hand, like that's kind of what we need to start doing with this topic too, just like the previous topic of Cobra. Once we start realizing we're not competitors, I'm the new guy at your facility. I'm not going to fucking unseat you. I'm just going to learn from you. We're co-workers. We're going to work together 4-day work week is in our mutual benefit. Let's do this. At some point, there's also got to be a little said to that. Like, if your entire team is like, we all agree on this, we worked it out amongst ourselves, and you're that pissant of a manager who's like, fuck you, I'm deciding to do it my way, even though this does actually work on paper. Fuck you. Like, go get another job.
Yeah, it's crazy that they don't see something like this as a competitive advantage to me.
Mhm,
Uh,
mhm.
it just it
Oh,
has the
I gotta say out of
opportunity to improve productivity. It definitely improves overall mental health of most people. There are a lot of people out there who want to work 5, 6 to 7 days a week. There are a lot of people out there who need to work 12-hour days. I get that. We're not talking to you at this point. Like, we're talking to the people who have a balance in life, who maintain a relatively stable
yeah,
work-life
the
balance throughout the year.
the
Work-life
fortunate.
balance means different things to different people. For me, for instance, it means for a year I might have to grind my dick into the dirt, but I know that after that year I get to chill for another year, and then for that, things happen in seasons. For other people, work-life balance might mean a steady cadence of going to work, coming home, spending time with families, doing the same thing on the weekends. Like, that's
Yeah,
fine, whatever works for you. But for most people, I think the 4-day work week is pretty optimal. And especially if you can work it out with your spouse, if you have to be married with kids and all that, and
yeah.
you have your Monday off and they have their Friday off, you have a day off to yourselves. Guess what you can do with a day off to yourself? You walk around the house naked. You can eat a bowl of cereal in your underwear. You can eat off in the recliner with the fucking curtains open. Like, no one
Yeah,
cares. It's your day, man.
and
Every
you think
Monday is your day from now on.
and, like, your time is one of the
Don't have
most
to
valuable
convince people.
things. It's the most valuable asset you have, and that's what we forget. Like, here's just a couple quick things to support the 4-day work too. So, Microsoft had a trial of a 4-day work week in Japan, resulted in a 40% increase in productivity. Um,
Shit.
in another study, a survey indicated that 68% of businesses experienced greater success in attracting and retaining talent with a 4-day work week. Exactly to your point.
It's a
Why the
competitive advantage.
fuck would you not want that advantage?
Henry Ford understood this in 1922.
Yeah.
He understood back then that if you cut their hours from, I believe at the time it was like 44 was the mandated full-time hour before you get overtime.
Yeah.
If you did that to 40 hours and you paid them the same, you paid them well, you paid them 250 a day, which was twice as much as what they were making elsewhere, that he would attract and retain top talent. He did this by offering them lower hours with better pay.
Yep.
This is exactly that. This is exactly that. And guess what Henry
Yeah.
Ford went on to do? He created Ford, people. He did all of
Yeah.
that. That's him. He
Well,
did
and
the assembly line. He created the assembly line.
yeah.
He created Ford. He became wealthier than any of us will ever become. And he did it through understanding that taking care of your people
Yeah. And
leads into them taking care of you. He
he's
had
a
his
piece of
hiccups,
shit in some
but
ways, but like even broken clock is right twice a day. But
100 years
I
ago,
mean,
this guy
like,
had it right.
well, and again, look at the data. That's the thing. Like you're saying, not opinions, facts. It's an opinion that 4-day work weeks don't work. It's facts that there's the 40% increase in productivity at Japan's Microsoft. It's a fact that 68% of businesses experience greater success in attracting and retaining talent. Oh, yeah, Microsoft Japan also had a 23% reduction in electricity costs during their 4-day work week trial. So, like, they got
Huh?
40% increase in productivity
Sure.
and save 23% on their bills. And it's fucking Microsoft. So you know they've got a lot of electricity bills there.
Yeah, they're building nuclear power plants for their AI monster. Absenteeism costs
Oh yeah.
$226 billion a year. What, like,
Fuck.
yeah, as a small business, you're not saving $226 billion every year, but you
Yeah.
contribute to it. Every time your employee doesn't come in, that's lost production on your end. That's lost time. That's lost
Yeah.
money. That's contributing to this. If you're not doing everything you can to encourage your employees to show up, and I'm not talking about giving like attendance bonuses, that shit doesn't work. And I'll tell you why that shit doesn't work. It's because it's only ever the low tier businesses that do that shit. If you're working a job that offers an attendance bonus, you work at a shithole. The
No,
guys are
absolutely.
pretty program.
I think that applies to every fucking level because any company that is doing that is immediately admitting that either they have lost control and cannot get people in the office, or they legitimately have such a shitty environment they can't keep people in the door 5 days a week. And that's such a fucking red alert. Like, Also, you're gonna be sick. Come on, it happens. You don't
It does
schedule it
happen.
out.
It does
Like,
happen, especially if you're in a physical job. Like
yeah.
that shit wears you down. That
Oh
shit
yeah.
wears you down.
Yeah.
And if you're in construction, it's probably even worse because there's 400,000 workers short right now. Like there's a 400,000 worker deficit in construction. And like I just said with
Oh,
the Microsoft power plants, they're not the only ones doing this. Basically, everyone that has a big AI monster is making some kind of power plant for this thing. So they're not going to be able
yeah.
to unplug it, by the way. So that dream's over. It's
Right.
got its own direct connection to a fucking nuclear power plant.
Yeah.
This thing is
Yeah.
never going to be shut down. Anyway, who's going to be building these things? Like we have all these fucking residential developments that are going up and falling over and sinking into the ocean and shit. And these
Yeah.
same people are going to be going off and building these nuclear power plants. I'm all for nuclear power. I just want it to be done right. And I don't
Yeah.
know that we have the opportunity to do that right now because we're already so short on all labor because no one wants to pick up a
Yeah.
hammer. No one sees the skill in a hammer
Well, and what's
anymore.
worse is that a lot of those trades don't get paid as much as the old flashy ones too, like being a doctor, being a lawyer, classic American jobs that make you good money. Like that stuff is kind of there. Or I guess a professor to a lesser degree, that one feels like it's fading. But like we kind of went through this weird phase where we lost our roots and started looking at manual labor as less than indifferent. And honestly, at this point, I'm kind of on the conspiracy train of like, may not have started intentionally, but I think it's intentionally fanned of like the difference between tech and not tech. There's no fucking
Hmm.
difference. We have a
No, there
production line. It's
isn't. And
just
I
a
didn't know
different
that
thing.
until meeting you. Honestly, I
Yeah.
thought tech was like a almost like a self-righteous industry that didn't
Oh, it
operate
is.
like any other industry. I thought it would. No, it is. The
It
first
is.
part that statement is true, but it does
It's the
operate
big
like every
techs.
other industry. It operates
Yeah.
like every fucking other industry out there. It has a
We're all just
production
supply
line.
lines. Yeah.
That's it. It has a production flow. It starts here
Yeah.
and it ends there.
Yeah.
We're all factory workers.
That's it. Yeah. At the end of the day, fuck, you're running a business, and I say, all right, here's the deal. What if I told you I can increase your profits by 40% and cut your electricity costs by 23%?
Fuck off. Tell me more.
All right, let's sit down and talk. That fucking simple. But if you're fucking arrogant enough to sit there, like, are you such a petty warlord that you want to sit there and like, I want them in 5 days a week so they know I'm important in my office? Like, fuck. If you're saying you're doing it for making money, well, you're lying.
It seems irresponsible, reckless even, to not at least entertain the idea.
And try it.
If you
And
do
what's the worst
entertain the
case? You make
idea,
more money.
would you bring it up to your employees? 'Cause this is something that I
Oh, yeah.
literally just had a thought of. In the manufacturing setting, my experience in production, I
Mhm.
don't think they would because it would give us hope. It would give us hope that that would happen. And then they would never hear the end. It would be like them
Yeah.
bringing up the opportunity to earn a bonus and then
Yeah.
never wanting to pay it out. Like it was supposed
Yeah.
to be
Yeah.
this kind of circling back to my foreman job where they didn't, want us to do the day split. They offered us a bonus if we hit some obscene mark that they thought was
Yep.
impossible. They were like, well, if we just give it to
Yep.
them like plus 10, like we give them their max plus 10%, they're never going to hit it. It's just going to be close enough, blah, blah, blah. We hit it the
Yep.
first day.
Yep.
We hit it again the second day. We hit it again the third day. And I did that to show them like this is the team you have. We're
Yeah.
working
Yeah.
like a
Like,
team you're paying for.
yeah. A
And they
fucking
didn't get it,
talented
dude.
team.
I had to fight tooth and nail to get $100 out of them. And they promised us $100 each day we hit these numbers.
Yeah.
And I
No,
took them up on
absolutely.
that. I was like, oh, you have no fucking idea the fan you just flamed, you dumb cunt. So I went
Yeah.
and did it. And I did it.
Yeah.
And I did
Yeah.
it. And they were just like, no, you weren't supposed to be this good. I was like, I fucking know. I fucking know. And you're not paying me right. And then the